Welcome, fellow anglers, to the Working Class Fishing Podcast, a place for all anglers, amateur or expert, to share their stories and learn about fishing. Join your hosts, John and Brian, each episode as they debunk the perceived inaccessibility to fishing, break down the barriers of any and all angling methods, and hear stories from other anglers and their own journeys with fishing. Now, let's get this show started.
Welcome back to another episode of the Working Class Fishing Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brian, and here's Mr. John Morris with today's sponsors.
Welcome back to Working Class Fishing, everyone. This episode is brought to you by Anadromous Fly Company, Angry Rooster Fly Company, 317 Flies, Lid Rig, Mr. Shearcure Naughty Tackle, and I believe that's it. Oh, no, CD Fishing USA. That is it.
All right. Hey, we got everybody. That's the good part. And make sure you go check all those folks out. They got some great products and great stuff for everybody out there. So tonight's very special guest, we have somebody that I found out about through John. He doesn't have like this big, massive social media presence. However, he is in the MLF bass fishing circuit, and he comes from the great state of Missouri. This is Mr. Mike Marfell, and Mike came through to talk to us tonight about bass fishing and what it's like to be on that MLF circuit and everything else. And we were just talking about all the different fisheries, all the crazy stuff going on out there, and all of our fisheries, I guess you could say. And we were talking about some ethics and everything else. But Mike, nonetheless, thanks for being on the podcast. We really appreciate having you here.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. It's going to be a good time, I promise.
Yeah.
Just from our conversation before you started recording, it'll be a good time.
Yeah. Well, what's going on in the bass fishing circuit right now?
Well, the good news is I'll fish a couple MLFs next year. I am stopping fishing the Pro-Am, and I'm going to fish a team circuit with the Tin Horse Monty at Lake of the Ozarks. And then they kicked back up our local solo pro series that we have here in the Ozarks. It's called the Oak Outdoor Solo Elite 100. You had to be invited to it. We already had our first tournament in December, and then there was going to be 4 or 5 more sprinkled in coming up, and then the championship to be announced in the fall. And then I think I'm going to fish the Missouri Solo Outdoors as well. If you don't notice the theme there, I'm tired of doing the draw tournaments. I'm going to go. I like fishing solo. I can do my own thing. My style isn't for everybody. I'm a grinder. Like I told you guys before, I'm going to lock that jig in my hand most days. If they don't bite something else real quick, guys, that's my confidence go-to. I'm going to put my head down and try to catch 5 big ones that way. And even if I don't, I'm not doing this for a living. I enjoyed myself all day. My ADD loves skipping that jig around out. But my ADD will also go out in 35, 40 feet of water and count rocks with a big football jig too and catch them that way. The good thing is my team partner this year, Greg, my team partner in the past has been Greg Plant, and he's taken some time off to work on his house at the lake. So the Tin Horse is going to step in for the next couple of years. And I think we're going to do well because I'll lock that jig in my hand, and Gabe will be throwing underspins and drop shots and shaky heads and picking up those fish behind me. Because at Lake of the Ozarks, there's a lot of times where, your nose, if you're in the back of the boat, you can't be doing what the guy in the front of the boat's doing. And there's nobody better than Gabe to pick out a way to catch fish off the back of the boat. So, and sometimes that'll clue me in, right? Like he'll catch 2 good ones out in the middle of a cut. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess we're going to leave the back of these docks alone. And we're going to start sniffing around out here. But I think I'm predicting we're going to do good things. I'm hoping we can make a run at the team of the year this year in the Anglers in Action. So we'll see how it goes. But, and it's going to be a lot more. I'm going to be a bigger celebrity because I'm going to be on the Tin Horse Monty channel more often this year. So,
hey, Gabe's a good guy. You can't beat Gabe.
Oh, he's the best.
Yeah, we had Gabe on as a guest. Oh gosh, how long ago was that, John? A couple months back. Anyways, Gabe's just a solid dude to have around. I mean, you want that guy in your corner. That's the thing, and because he is such an effective angler. He just understands it, and he's not
a
afraid.
Cerebral angler. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. He's a thinker. You're like, man, where is my Gabe at? When things just aren't going right. That's that's what we're always asking is like, where is my Gabe? Because he does think about stuff, and he's so good at explaining like, hey man, you know, this time of year that you should be trying some of this kind of stuff too, even though it just seems to defy convention, you know, and it works. I mean, it's like, I'll go watch Gabe and then go out after some smallies, and it works. And it's like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, the only way I could get my inner Gabe was just to put him in the back of my boat, because I'm a stubborn grinder, like I said. And you guys will love this story. Our first tournament already happened in December. We cashed a check. I think we're in the top 20. And we had 3 fish maybe 2 or 3 fish in the box. You'd have to go back and watch the video. But there was a moment, I think, if you guys seen that video, where Gabe said, "This is dead, man. There's something going on." And I was like, "You're right." And I immediately dropped my rod, picked up the trolling motor. We moved 10 miles down the lake, and with like a couple hours left to go, and ended up finishing our limit and culling one time, you know. But me, I've had so much success where I was at. I was stubborn enough. I was going to make them bite. When Gabe was like, "Man, there's something ain't right. I don't see any shad flickering. There's not a squirrel on the bank. There's nothing." So that's my new thing at Lake of the Ozarks, man. If I'm not getting bit, I'll pull that trolling motor and run 72 miles an hour down the lake for 10 miles and pull into another spot. Just because that lake is so, you know, it'll be on in this part of the lake for 2 hours. And, you know, it's just, you can't always do that there when the big boats get out. That's the only problem with that lake. Early in the spring and in the winter, yeah, you can do that. But man, September comes, it don't matter what size boat you got. You're going 30 miles an hour and that's it. And you're getting your teeth beaten while you're doing it. But
oh yeah.
But Gabe, yeah, I'm so excited to see how this all works out. I think it's going to work out for the best. Plus, I do a radio show here in St. Louis, the Bluff City Outdoor Show, and we were when I announced there that Gabe was there. And plus, Gabe is like having security in your boat, because he's 6'3" and strong as an ox. So it's
he's the
nice
mailman.
He's the mail. But you know, he's one of those guys too that's so nice and so quiet at this. I would hate to see what happens when the switch actually gets flipped. I've never seen it, but I know that I don't want to. You know.
Oh, I don't know, man. I think Gabe's like a gentle giant, right? You know, I mean,
he is that, but there's got to be a toggle switch somewhere. I don't know where that's at, but I don't want to ever find out. That's for sure.
I don't think anybody would really. I mean, no. And besides that, who wants to mess with Gabe anyways? He's just too damn nice.
Right. Oh no, it's me running my mouth that I'm talking about. It's not Gabe doing anything. I'll give you a story real quick. We were getting blown into the side of the dock in my old Ranger. Now that thing's, you know, a big old heavy tub, and Gabe caught us off the dock with both hands, and he's like, "What do you want me to do?" Because I was messing with something, and I was like, "Give it a big push, get us off here, and I'll get back on the trolling motor." And he propelled that boat perpendicularly sideways for like 10 feet with a big mighty shove off the dock. That's like, holy crap, dude.
Wow. And that's what's funny to me is I had no idea Gabe was that tall.
Yeah, he's at least 6'2", if not 6'3".
See, I had no idea, because I've only ever seen Gabe like sitting down and never actually in person, you know? Like I've seen him on YouTube, but when you see him on YouTube, he's with other people that you also like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you could go on my Facebook and look at all the times we fished the Toyota Owner Tournament together. And we took that picture at the beginning behind the big Toyota banner. You know, they got a professional camera crew at that tournament, right? That takes your picture in front of the big Toyota Bonus Bucks banner. Every year it's just funny. I'm like, my head's maybe to his shoulder somewhere or something. But yeah, and then the solo thing is what I'm really looking. I mean, I love fishing by myself. And that tournament format's great. There's no Alabama rig. Not that I have an issue with it ethically or anything like that. I just don't like throwing it. But there's times of the year where you have to throw it if it's allowed, or you're going to get beat. And we do a 2-day format. So I really like that. Cream rises to the top. You know, I don't even really practice anymore. I'll go out on the Friday before the tournaments and sniff around with electronics and stuff, and then go out and figure it out in the next 2 days. Ain't no sense in sticking any fish. I'll occasionally let them swim around with it, but for the most part, I don't even try to catch any fish anymore in practice. I absolutely hate practicing just because I like catching. I like catching, not, it's tough to go out there and not catch them.
Yeah, catching's what we want to do. I mean, fishing's nice, but catching's what we want to do. And
right.
Man,
and if you're in a tournament, you don't want to catch them in practice, or so I used to do a lot more of catching them in practice, but anymore as I've gotten older, I don't do that. I just don't. I'll catch it if I got, say, a Saturday, Sunday tournament and I can get down there on a Wednesday practice, then I'll catch a few, but never on the day before. We do with Gabe a little bit but what we do is we run to an area of the lake that we don't plan on fishing. I call it playing defense. We go stick somebody else's fish. And then it's mostly because we're filming for the channel. We don't want it to be boring of us just idling around looking. So we'll run somewhere where we don't plan on fishing and swing on everyone that bites. Because at that lake, if you find that, you can go duplicate that somewhere else, generally.
Yeah, that's, Gabe told me that.
Very patternable lake, yeah.
Yeah.
Type of rock. In Lake of the Ozarks, you got to forget about the docks and look at what the bank and how that would fish if there wasn't a single dock there, I guess is what I'm saying.
There's so many docks too.
Right.
It's
I love when the fishing report says that, John, that fishing's good around the docks. I'm like, well, that's like saying it's good in the water. It's not much different. Man, I can't believe you got skills there, brother. I can't believe how many flies have you tied since we've been on BS?
6.
Wow.
These are small though, dude. Yeah, I had this fella named Josh Franklin. Well, actually, you might be able to see. I'll bring it over here in a second. Josh Franklin, he made me some art. It's called. He's doing a 3 series for fly fishing, and he's doing it like so and so's 3 flies that they like to fish in their area, and then he draws a piece of the map. Like for you, he'd be like, Mike Marfell's 3, and it would show your area geographically on the map, and then the 3 flies or baits or whatever that you told him that you fish in that area, and he draws them.
Wow.
And it's really cool. So
a lot of talented people in this world, isn't there?
There really are, man. And he's a vet too. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
But Mike, dude, let's get some background on you, man. How'd you get into fishing, and kind of where'd you cut your teeth at?
Okay, so I grew up in a little town in Hillsboro, Illinois. Parents got divorced when I was 10, I believe. So my mom eventually married to my stepdad. My dad's a traveling salesman, so he was gone a lot. So I lived with my mom and stepdad most of the time. And he was in a bass club, fish bass tournaments. So he just started dragging me along to the meetings. And I kind of got the bug, and I fished with him, and we started fishing team tournaments, father and son tournaments together. And I think I won my first tournament when I was 12, father and son tournament at Wren Lake in Illinois. And I've been hooked on it ever since. Of course, did a lot of fishing from that moment on till high school. And then, instead of sniffing around fish, we didn't have high school fishing. I started sniffing around girls and riding skateboards and doing all that kind of stuff that a young man should take an interest in it too. And got out of high school, got married, and I bought myself an engagement boat. I was living on Carlisle Lake, and bought a bass boat, started fishing again. And the practice wife lasted a few years, got divorced, had to get rid of the boat, took a couple years off, and in '99, I bought another bass boat, and I've never looked back since then. When I won, Jonathan, you may or may not know this, but when I won the Solo Pro Championship at Lake of the Ozarks, I was the only guy in the top 10 that didn't have a full-time boat deal, and I was still running this was in 2018. I was running a 1996 Ranger 482. So Had a brand new outboard on it, 4 Lowrance units, power poles, oxygenators. I mean, it was the most tricked out 96 Ranger you've ever seen. But I always told myself that new fiberglass doesn't catch fish. I'm going to wait till I win one, because I can't justify how much bass boats cost when you got kids you got to put through school and such, right? So,
No, understandably, yeah.
but in '99, I started taking it real serious, fishing in a bass, just fishing bass club stuff and some BFL stuff as a co-angler. And then I stepped it up and I toured with I did the Bassmaster Opens as a co-angler for like 2 or 3 years, 3 years, I think. And then they ended that and went to the Marshall program. And I did that 1 year. And I will tell you, I learned more being a Marshal than I ever did fishing as a co-angler.
So what is that? What is a Marshal?
So
Are those the guys that sit in the boats like the refs kind of?
the refs are a different thing. That's the Marshals we're in the Elite Series. The Elite Series used to have amateurs in the back fishing against the other amateurs. Well, those guys up front are fishing for a living. And you put a guy like me in the back of the boat, I'm going to catch some fish. And I paid a $750 entry fee to be in the back of the boat. I want to get my money back. And finally, Bass got smart, in my opinion, and got rid of the co-angler. If you want to have a professional sport, you can't have an amateur in the back of your boat. So I guess I got in at the time where they were pretty much fed up with having co-anglers, because the very next year that switched over to a Marshall program. And basically you paid I think at the time, $150 to be a Marshal. And you just ride along with the pro to keep them, you're there to keep them honest, I guess.
Yeah.
And you get that $150 back in swag, the stuff they give you before the tournament, sponsor stuff. And those guys were completely different attitude as far as calling you up and showing you what they're doing, talking about what they were doing. They were trying to play defense. If you can imagine trying to fish a 4-day tournament for a living, and you got a guy in the back of your boat that's catching 3 or 4 of them a day too, that's tough. And
yeah, it's not the best way to make a living.
mm-hmm.
And it's hard to make friends like that too.
Yes. I had some bad experiences when I was fishing out of the back of the boat. I won't get into naming names, but it was pretty rough. And so eventually I came down here. I was living in Alton, Illinois, and fishing a lot on the Mississippi River, but we don't have many tournaments on there. So I started traveling down the Lake of the Ozarks. And man, the first few years fishing down there in the solo series, I would come in and I'd have 14 or 15 pounds and think I was doing something, when I realized quickly that you're going to need more like 20 to 23 pounds if you want to do anything. So about my 3rd year doing that, I ended up winning 1 tournament in that series and cashed a check in every won Angler of the Year. Got lie detected 6 out of the 8 times, if you can, because I was from Illinois, an old beat up boat. And I think some of the locals were like putting the word in the ear of the tournament director, like, what the hell is going on here? And I was like, hey, the last 3 years I've been donating my money, ain't nobody said boo. But
Yeah.
I wore it like a badge of honor. I knew I wasn't cheating. And from winning that was probably the biggest thing, winning that Angler of the Year, in my opinion. I've won I won a championship or 2. I've won quite a few tournaments, but that Angler of the Year thing's very hard to win, to stay consistent enough. To tell you how hard it is, I won Angler of the Year, like I said, won cashed a check in every tournament. And then the next year I didn't cash a check in any of the tournaments. So it's a humbling sport, as you know. I mean,
Absolutely, it's a humbling sport, but at the same time, there's so much drive and satisfaction from it.
Right. I learned more from a loss than I ever did from a win, for sure.
I think that's true with most things in life.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, talk to any entrepreneur, they failed several times before they ever made it. I always say bass fishing is, if you're trying to do it for a living, it's kind of like motocross, right? There's 10% at the top that's getting rich. There's a bunch of guys in the middle getting by, and some guys getting divorced and going broke on a credit card at the bottom. It's just kind of the way. I mean, the Elite Series, if you don't know this was back when I was doing it, would have been 2006, 7 and 8, something like that. And those pros told me it's about $80,000 minimum on a baloney budget, staying in cheap hotels, to play the game. So you got to make back $80,000 in tournament winnings before you're even breaking even. And that's not counting your boat and your truck. So if you don't have sponsors, you're barking up the wrong tree. You know, it's not cheap to play that game. It's just weird, right? That you're fishing for your own money, essentially. You're gambling on yourself. So I quickly gave up that dream of being I've got a good job, man. I quickly gave up that dream of being a full-time touring pro just because I have a wife and 4 kids and a mortgage. I can't gamble to go do that.
Yeah.
But I fish against high-level guys here in the Ozarks. A lot of guys, well, hell, there'll be 4 or 5 Elite Series guys, a couple MLF pros, a couple Bassmaster Classic champions in a lot of the tournaments I fish at Lake of the Ozarks, because a lot of those guys, when they're not fishing the Elite Series, they like to fish that local stuff too.
Yeah.
You know, there was a time when Denny Brower was still living at the Lake of the Ozarks. When somebody told me they were fishing a Wednesday nighter at Lake of the Ozarks, and there was 3 Bassmaster Classic champions, because it was Dion and Guido Hibden have both won a Classic, and Denny Brower. So you're on a Wednesday night tournament against 3 Bassmaster Classic champions that live on the lake. So it quickly makes you hone your skills if you want to compete. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just fell in love with. I'm competitive about anything I do, really. I mean, if I play my grandma in ping pong, God rest her soul, I'll let her hang around for a while, but she better bring it if she wants to win.
I mean, what is that allure in tournament angling that brings you to wanting to compete? I've never really been like competitive with fishing. I guess I just enjoy fishing, right? But I know that a lot of people do compete in it. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks like a good way to spend your time. And then I see like the guys that are like hardcore, like they're paying the mortgage out of it, and it turns into something pretty serious.
Yes.
What is that allure to be competitive?
I think it's just because I've played sports my whole life. I've always been, if I play rock, paper, scissors with you, I want to win. And I think you just want to go out there and test yourself against other anglers, and if you can make enough money to pay for your trip, that's even better. I mean, I know other guys have got a complete different attitude. I've seen guys at Lake of the Ozarks pull up and then not fish because certain anglers show up. They don't think it's right that these Elite Series guys or other high level guys are getting in a local tournament. I'm like, what? They live here, dude. What
They're locals.
Yeah. So, and trust me, those guys that are out on tour, they come back home. They got their work cut out for them from all the weekend guys that fish tournaments at Lake of the Ozarks. There's some of any local lake you went to, right? You go to Kentucky Lake or Table Rock or any of those places, there's going to be some locals that are tough to beat no matter who you are, But I think the competitive part of it, it just ups the ante a little bit, I guess. It's weird because I rarely go fun fish anymore. I usually go when I got a tournament and I take it real serious. So I think that makes it. When I say take it serious, I always have a good time. I don't get too worried about it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not butthurt if I don't do well. I'm one of those guys that'll stick around and congratulate the winner because I know how hard it is to win. A lot of guys go home. They don't even stick around to tell a guy nice work, not me. And I got that from the first tournament I ever won at a higher level at Table Rock, which coming from Illinois, dude, Table Rock was a shock. The deep water, the clear water. And I just went and did me. I went and fished shallow, and I ended up winning a tournament. And I looked around and there's hardly anybody in that parking lot except one guy leaning up against his wrapped boat and truck. And it was James Watson, who was a local, who just wanted to congratulate me. And we talked and bullshit. I've never forgot that. He probably don't remember it, but I sure do. That meant a lot to me for him to stick around and congratulate me.
I mean, that's some real sportsmanship, man.
That's just what I was going to say too. That's like being a good sportsman, just in general. Like, we teach our kids all to say, "Hey, good game." You know how it goes. And
yeah, you're forcing them to go out there and say good game. They're not doing it on their own accord generally.
Yeah. But still, it's a good practice, even as we get older and we compete in things, to have that practice. That's kind of the thing here. And
right.
I just, when I think of like tournament angling, I think of like, you see guys, man, they get intense. Like, it's like, dude, I mean, I understand to a degree, like, there's an intensity to it, but holy shit,
Yeah, but you can be an intense guy without being an asshole. That's the thing. Me and Gabe are intense about it, but if I'm coming in, I mean, here's the thing, communication, have a conversation with the guy. If you come into an area you wanted to fish and he's there, ask him which way he's going, whatever, just have a conversation. I'm never afraid to go behind somebody either, because I know I can, probably fishing a little different, whatever the case may be. But yeah, you're right. There's some guys that are, steely eyed, and I don't like to lose, but I'm not a sore loser. That's the thing. I told this story on the radio show. I had a guy, so I had an axle blowout on my trailer, didn't get a practice for my team championship. My team partner couldn't make it, so I was by myself anyway. So I just went out, I just sat in the hotel for 2 days while I was getting the boat fixed, rested up. Come tournament day, I just went out and went fishing. First pocket I seen on a channel swing that had wind blowing in it. I went in there and pretty much stayed in there all day, got my limit, came back out. The next day, wind had totally changed directions. And when I went by that spot that I didn't see a single boat in the day before, but it was kind of close to takeoff, so everybody had to run by there and could see me. The hair and the beard is what I probably need to get rid of. It's pretty obvious. And then I think the guy on the radio show, Jonathan, said I should go with on tournament day, go with skinny jeans and a man bun and throw everybody a curveball so they don't know who it is. So like anyway, there was a bunch of boats in there, right? So I'm pretty sure it was the bent rod pattern. They seen I was in the top 5 or whatever that day after the first day. So I went to another cove, right, on down the next channel swing that I wanted to fish the day before, but the wind was blowing in there so hard you couldn't. Truman Lake is like flooded timber. So it's like throwing a grenade in your boat if you went back in there with rollers coming in, right? You're just going to get bounced around, stuck on stobs and spinning around on your trolling motor all day. I went in there and I'm fishing. I was going all the way to the back and I would drop my talons down and I was just pitching every tree. And then I would pick them up, ease on back a little farther, set them down and do it over. And I'm back in a spot that's 75 feet wide. And there's only another 20 feet till you're at the end of this cut, this cove, this little creek. 2 dudes came in and they kept coming further and further back towards me. And they get back there and they say, "Seen you had a pretty good day yesterday." And I was like, "Yeah, not bad. How's it going today?" I was like, "I got 3 in the box. It's early. I'm confident." And he said, "You get him in here yesterday?" And I was like, "No, didn't get him in here." And he goes, "Okay." And he just kept fishing, right? Kept getting closer and closer to me, to the point where I'm sitting there with my talons down, guys. And the 2 of them are throwing whopper ploppers past my boat back to the very back of that cove. Where I'm sitting there with my anchors down. To your point, it's like, that's intense, or is it stupid? I'm not sure which it is.
What that classifies under.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it classifies either, but I just shook my head and shook it off like, well, there's nothing I'm going to do about it. I'm not sitting here and argue about it with them.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm intense, but I'm not there to get in an argument. I'm just like, you can't fix stupid sometimes.
The famous words of Ron White. You can't fix stupid. Yeah.
Only comedians tell the truth these days, right? That's about
it.
That's the only people telling the truth. But it is what it is. I don't let it get to me at all. Some guys will, that's for sure. Some guys let that get to them in a tournament, but it doesn't bother me none. Because I know I'm confident in my skills, so whether they're back there or not, it's not going to affect me anything. Especially it was annoying that they're throwing a giant whopper plopper back in super shallow water while I'm trying to pitch a jig around. But what do you got?
That can be extremely frustrating. I can totally get that.
Yeah, but it's better. You can't fish frustrated, so it's better just to laugh it off. Is the way I look at it. Yeah. Because I say I don't fun fish, but I have fun fish. I've had fun every tournament I'm in. So if you let that stuff get to you, then you're not having fun anymore. So what's the point? I'm also in my I'm 52. We're going to be 53 this year. So the 27-year-old me might have bowed up and wanted to say something, but the 53-year-old me is like, fuck it.
Yeah. Hear you on that. You know, sometimes it's just not worth it. You know, I mean, I was talking to a couple friends today and they were talking about, you know, fishing a local river, and this local river, we get all kinds of folks out there fishing, and guy was out there, he's spay fishing. And so we always try to be courteous to everybody when we go out there. We're not out there just to be jerks. And said, hey, what direction you fishing? He says, I'm fishing both directions. It's like, well, okay,
that's
but
not how that works.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that doesn't work that way. Anyways, the guy proceeded to try to be a jerk about it and everything else. And it's like, not really worth it, dude. You know, it's a big river. There's lots of places to fish, and you know, you're going to fish one direction or the other. You're either going to fish upriver or downriver, but you don't have to, you know, be a jerk about it and say, well, I want everything to myself. You know, I guess the guy was out there. He really had the look going, you know, I guess he was wearing like a white scarf and everything else.
Right, right.
You know, you kind of bring it on yourself when you're out there doing that whole thing. You know, if you want to do like the River Tweed in Scotland or something, look in the Western United States, I mean, more power to you. I see a lot weirder people dressed around here, but, you know, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, you're kind of bringing it on yourself there a little bit, dude. But, you know, just that common courtesy, I think, is what it really comes down to.
Have a conversation, and you tried to, and he shut you down.
Yeah, well, it wasn't me. It was a friend of mine. I don't know. I mean, I've ran into another guy that was very similar to that. I call him Sherlock Holmes because he was wearing all the tweed jacket, and like he had this little tweed hat and everything. He's like, well, you go fish in that area and I'll fish this area. It's like, really? So it didn't go
That's
over
awesome.
too well. But and who cares, you know, right? It's like, all right, maybe this guy, you know, maybe he only gets out of the medical practice once a week, and he just wants to come down here and fish in, you know, Urban Fishing Zone USA, and you know, he can't go to his dream desired Patagonian river to go fish for whatever, you know. Right. So it's like, oh, whatever, you know, just go fish and have fun. And you know, is it really worth fighting over? No, not really. So
well, in my case with these two guys, I asked them, and they only caught one fish on day one. Well, why are you back there messing around with the guy that's in the top 5? Just leave him alone. You know what I'm saying? You don't really stand a chance of winning. If I'd have came there and seen a guy that I knew was in the top 5, I wouldn't have got anywhere close to it.
Yeah, just let him fish and go about your way. It's like, okay,
even if I was another guy in the top 5, you know what I'm saying? I would just leave him alone.
Not a chance in hell.
No, the common courtesy is kind of gone. And I don't know if it's going to get better or worse with high school fishing. It just depends on how the coaches are. If that guy that I'm talking about is coaching a high school team, we're in trouble. I coached a high school team, and there were a couple of homeschool kids whose parents reached out to me to help them out. And I think they thought when it started, oh, they got this guy, he's going to give us a bunch of blue dots and we're going to be on fire, you know? No, that's not coaching, you know?
Yeah, we're not learning anything by doing that.
No.
You know, that's the thing, is we're not really learning, and that's what we're supposed to be doing when we're out there doing this. Is, you know, we need to be learning how to, you know, fish.
Yes.
You know, that's the whole thing. And, you know, I equate it to when people are like, oh, where are the fish biting? You know, it's like, well, you know, they're out there, and
in the water.
Yeah, they're in the water. Well, and like I said, I'm not so disingenuous that I would be like, you know, well, you know, this is where you got to go. This is what you got to do. You know, I look at fishing as an adventure, and you got to go out and explore, you know?
Yeah.
And with these kids, you know, you're teaching them how to use a bait caster. You're teaching them how to do certain things within, you know, reason and all that kind of stuff. And that's great.
I want to try to teach you how to find your own fish. That's what I'm there for.
Yeah, exactly. It goes back to
my years of knowledge to try to teach you how I would approach it.
Exactly.
And then you go out and do it on your own.
That's the whole idea, isn't it? Is that, you know, you teach somebody to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. You know, give them a fish and you feed them for a day. It goes
Right.
back to that old, proverb. I don't even know where that comes from,
I
but
think it comes out of the Bible, if I'm not mistaken.
okay. I mean, I don't know where it comes from, but it seems to make a heck of a lot of sense to me.
Yes,
That
yes.
it's something that we should be probably, looking at and focusing on in that respect, from that standpoint anyways. So,
Yeah, that and teach them how to be stewards of the outdoors. I always made an example. I go out of my way, even in a tournament, if I see a bottle floating or a bag floating or whatever.
Oh,
to go over and pick it
absolutely.
up.
Yeah,
If I get
absolutely.
snagged on a bunch of crappie line or something, I try to pull as much of it in and out of the water as I can.
Mhm.
All that kind of stuff.
No, I think that's critically important, and showing, there again, you're coaching a youth team there, showing those kids how to, take care of what we're loving to fish there. I think that's very important.
Yeah, and not necessarily the tournament results either, but are you getting better? Are you getting better at finding fish, at staying calm, keeping your head about you? You don't know how many tournaments that I've done well because I've caught key fish really, really late in the day, if not 2 or 3 key fish late in the day. Don't let yourself get spun out. It's like, be confident in what you're doing and do it. If you're not confident fishing, you're really fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah.
All right, so since we're talking about confidence, what is your confidence bait? Is it
jig.
the jig?
It's a jig, and 99% of the time, I've told everybody a million times, I either tell you the truth or I don't tell you anything. And most of the time, it's a Jewel 1/2 ounce finesse football jig and peanut butter and smoke with a green pumpkin purple trailer with chartreuse tips.
Good colors. Good colors.
And that it'll be that and a 1/2 ounce, that and maybe a 3/8 in the winter, and then the 5/8 and 3/4 ounce. I taught a technique to a guy that just won the MLF Super Tournament at Lake of the Ozarks, and Matt gave me props, and nobody believed the way he was catching them. And this is how I won that championship. I caught fish in brush piles too, but all my key fish came swimming a 3/4 ounce football jig on big commercial docks like that you could fit big yacht, 40, 50-foot yachts in, skipping it back in there as far as I could, and then burning that jig as fast as I could burn it underneath the floats, just as fast as I could reel it. And my theory is that thing's moving so fast and that football head's pushing so much water, and the biggest fish that lives on that dock thinks that something else is chasing that, because why else would it be going that fast? And he's like, not in my fucking house. If there's something to be ate here, I'm eating it. And I would burn that thing out as fast as I could. And when I got to the end of the dock, I just kill it. And I seen every one of them hit it. Just seen them come out from under there and smoke it. Most of them within 3 or 4 feet of the boat. And my buddy Matt Els was in that tournament, and he tried it a couple of times. And he called me before the tournament. And I said, yeah, Matt, that's how I'm catching him again. And he was like, I can't get it to work. He said, one of these days I'm going to have to go out with you. You got to show me. I was like, cool. But we never got a chance to do that in practice. And he said he was coming back in on day one and seeing a set of docks that looked familiar to how I was telling what I was telling. He'd never fished there before. The wind was blowing in on him. And he went in there and did it and caught 3 fish over 4 pounds and ended up jumping up in the second on day one, and then went out and did it all day long on day 2 and won the tournament by a handy margin. Yeah. And I was doing the same thing, but I made the mistake of doing it in an area that has it's a Lake of the Ozarks has got a lot of restaurants and bars and stuff like that on it. And I was catching them in practice early in the week on these docks back super shallow, but it happened to be where there was a restaurant, right? Real popular spot. Well, come tournament day, it was a super nice day in the fall, and everybody was coming in and out of there on their boats going to the restaurant. And I stubbornly stuck with it entirely too long. I should have punted and went somewhere else. But I was doing the same thing and couldn't have the results that Matt did. But it felt really good that it finally worked for him, and nobody believed him that that's how he was catching them. And nobody believed me either when I said that's how I caught him. I was like, it's a technique that you can cover a lot of water with too, because you're moving. And in my opinion, at Lake of the Ozarks on those gigantic yacht docks, And you know what I'm saying? It's not one single dock, it's a dock with 15 or 20 stalls that big. And there's rows and rows of them. And bass don't have to ever come out from underneath there except to spawn. You know, the front of those docks is in 5 feet of water, and then the end of them, the deep end is 55, 60 foot. So you got every depth range known to man. There's no reason for them to come out. There's shade, there's bluegill, there's crawfish, there's shad. There's no reason for them. And it's kind of hard to get your bait back there. And part of that's the reason I use it. The 3/4 got a couple of reasons. One of them is because you can skip it a long way. People don't realize heavy jig, if you get it down, man, you can really skip it a long way. Get the right setup, get the right rod and reel setup. And now I've completely fallen in love with the Lew's Andy Montgomery skipping reel. It's just got the super shallow spool. It only holds like 35, 40 yards of line. So you don't hardly ever get backlashes, you know.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great for skipping. It really is.
Did you ever use, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you had me thinking, dude, when you were talking about colors, did you ever use those crawls that I sent you?
I did, and the colors are great. I need to get with you on that. I think the only thing was the action of the legs is more of a winter thing, and they don't flap fast enough for what I'm doing. Like it would make it swim real kind of funny. And I don't know how you correct that. Maybe thin down.
Yeah, softer plastic.
What the trailer I'm using is a Yum chunk, and it has really thin legs, and they really work. I mean, they really, really go. But yours is probably perfect in the wintertime because it's got that slower kind of a floaty action to it. But when I'm reeling it real fast, it would make the jig kind of wobble like this for some reason. Kind of like you were talking about that fly that would want to act funny on you, you know, when you're reeling fast. But the colors they just perfect. And not having to dye the tips, I mean, that's the big thing.
Yeah, I got out of I don't make plastics anymore, but the dude I sold all my stuff to, I'll try to get him to make some more of that color because I gave him all my colors and everything. And
the high school team is using a lot of them. I gave them each a big bag of those.
Nice.
I mean, I do that. They come over to my tackle room and there's just so much stuff in there. You know, I got stuff from the 80s, you know, and I would, every time they come over, we'd have a meeting before a tournament. I'd let them kind of pick through and take a few things home with them.
Dude,
I knew what that was like, you know, as a kid, not having any cash.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I'm still a kid, you know, like.
Same here. Till I walked by the mirror. I told my wife I'm thinking about taking all the mirrors out of the house.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, who's that old guy? You know, I played hockey for years, and this is a funny story, not fishing related, but so my buddy was home from Nashville. He called and said, hey, you want to go over and play? They got an open stick time on New Year's Eve. You want to go and play some hockey? And I was like, well, let me call over there because I play goalie. I'm like, hey, you guys, what's the policy? How many goalies you let show up? She goes, we usually only let 4. So you want to get here early and get signed up. I'm like, perfect. 4 goalies. I don't have to play that much. You know, in an open time, the goalies just rotate through, you know, you go from one end to the other end and go to the bench and then go back in at the other end, you know, just keep rotating through. Shit, dude, I get there and only one other goalie shows up. So I had to play the entire hour and a half in goal, and I felt like I'd been prison gang raped because I hadn't played hockey in like 4 years. I had a hell of a game, and the kids that showed up because they were out of school, there was a bunch of guys from the IHL and AHL that used to play at McHenry College that were home on Christmas break, and they all came out to the open skate, which the shots were frightening. It was a lot faster and harder than what I'm used to. The good news is the defense was a lot better because you still had a couple of those kids on your side playing defense, which makes all the difference. A good defense makes goalies a lot better if you don't let guys get open looks. But in a pickup game like that, dude, by about the hour mark, everybody's so tired, there wasn't a lot of defense being played anymore. It was more like an exhibition. But I need to get back to it because that's what kept me in shape for fishing, honestly. It really
So who's your hockey team?
The Blues.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. But I just like watching hockey. Back to the sportsmanship, Brian. it's one of the coolest things about hockey is in the playoffs, watching them all actually line up and shake hands at the end of a series.
I was going to say that's that's a big deal in hockey. You know, that's a big part of that. And, you know,
we can fight and then shake hands and go out for a beer afterwards. That's what I like about hockey.
Exactly. You know, that's even football or, you know, I mean, I don't know. Football's starting to turn into kind of a joke anymore, you know, but
unfortunately, I agree with you. I absolutely love it. Coached middle school football, but the NFL anymore, it's like, I don't know what's a catch. And they're trying to make, I would not want to try to play defense in the NFL anymore. They're so geared to try to make it an offensive game that to me, I don't know what's a, Travis Kelce can come off the line and just molest the cornerback and get open. But if he puts a hand on his hip when he turns in his route, all of a sudden the flag's getting thrown.
Yeah, it's just a flag fest anymore. It's, you know, football used to be one of those things where we would, you know, it was supposed to be a rough game, but now it's gotten so watered down, you know, just, it's not the same as what it used to be. I absolutely not. No,
the rule, I mean, I don't know what's roughing the passer and what's not, what's a catch and what's not. It's like, yeah. Are you supposed to take the quarterback and lay him down softly, you know?
Yeah. He's supposed to be able to just run away. That's right. What I understand.
My favorite linebacker of all times was James Harrison for the Steelers, and his nickname was Debo after the guy on Fridays, right?
Yeah.
And he always said, I'm not trying to injure anybody, but I'm trying to hurt you. You're going to remember James Harrison tackled you. You know,
yeah.
You're going to think about it. You're going to think about me coming.
Well, I think about like, you know, going way back, like Dick Butkus,
Jack Lambert. Yeah.
Yeah. Jack Hammer, you know, I mean, all those guys that, you know, that's like all classic stuff. And those guys, they wouldn't have been able to play in today's league.
No, imagine what the quarterbacks from the late 70s, early 80s think now. Like they had to get their brains beat in to play that position.
Yeah, now exactly.
You can play till you're 45 if you're Tom Brady because they don't let anybody get close to you.
Yeah. Anybody gets too close, oh man, you got hell to pay. You know, a defender can't really defend anymore because you know, it's just changed so much. I can't watch football anymore. You know, but hockey's
hockey's the reason I don't have cable because I wouldn't get anything done because I would just watch hockey.
NHL Network, baby.
Yeah, I should do that. I mean, when it comes to the Stanley Cup time, like here in St. Louis, I don't even go to a game unless we're in the playoffs because to me, that's two different games.
Yeah.
Regular season hockey and playoff hockey is not even close to the same thing.
I like.
So how much fishing Jonathan, do you get out much?
Not as much as I'd like to. I try to get out as much as I can, but I don't know, dude. Working a lot.
Yeah, pesky job. They always announce me on the radio show as Mike Marfell, the professional fisherman. I'm like, no. I'm the most professional in this room, but I got a regular job. I don't like to call myself a pro because I fish amongst pros. I'm not one. Somebody asked me why I had my company's logo on my tournament jersey. I was like, because they're my number one sponsor. They're the reason I'm able to come out here and do this. You know, they've given me a steady paycheck the last 26 years and enough time off to go play around and what I love to do. So why wouldn't I put them on there?
Absolutely.
They let me work. Like I'll work if I got a tournament coming up, I'll work 3 12-hour days so I can bug out on Wednesday. We get every other Friday off. Today's my Friday because I don't have to work tomorrow. So that really helps with the tournaments, right? I already got Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Now I just need to work a few extra hours, take one vacation day, and I've got 2 days to 3 days to practice before tournament starts. So
nice.
They are my number one sponsor when it comes to that. All my sponsors are product anyway. I'm not big enough to have. I ain't getting any paychecks. Someday, maybe. I mean, that's the retirement plan. I work from right here, from home most days. So get the kids out of school. We're going to hopefully move to Lake of the Ozarks, and I'm going to guide during the week. There's tournaments on the weekend. And then work a few days a week remotely from home. So that's the retirement plan for me.
That's a damn good retirement plan.
Yeah, no kidding, dude.
And I think being a guide is a lot more than catching fish too, making sure people have a good time. I worked as a canoe guide in the Boundary Waters right out of high school, right out of college. That was probably the most rich I ever felt, because I was out in the outdoors canoeing in the Boundary Waters every day, taking families out, showing their kids how to catch fish, setting up tents and cooking for a family. You know, mostly it was very wealthy people from Chicago coming up there. And it was great, guys. We have what they call a lodge to lodge. So in the Boundary Waters, you got to carry all your shit in portage, you know, all your food. But we would go out in portage for 2 or 3 days and then hit a lodge and be able to go in and get a hot meal and a shower and load up on supplies. So we didn't have to carry everything for a week. We'd have to carry enough for 3 days. But it was a blast, man. And looking back on it, that's my advice to my kids. It's like, if you want to do something like that, do it now before you get settled down. Just go out and find a job like that, something you love in the outdoors, and go do it for a year or two. And then you can always go back to getting in the real world.
Absolutely. That's what I've told my daughter over and over, is like, you know, go do this before the real world catches up with you.
When I was a young man, like that kind of stuff was pretty regular. People would go backpack Europe, or, you know, the guys I worked with at that lodge, a lot of them, they worked the ski resorts in the winter. They worked the whitewater stuff in West Virginia in the summer, or I mean, in the fall, and in the summertime, they were up in Canada working as a canoe guide or a fishing guide. And they just kind of rotated by this. They just chased the seasons basically. And
yeah,
nothing wrong with doing that as a young man for 4 or 5 years and then getting a real job. A couple guys that I took out were doctors, and they had their 3 boys with them. So the Boundary Waters at the time had an 8-person limit. This is as many as you could get a permit for, right? So they had their 3 kids and them 2, and then me and another guy. And they brought in some whiskey one night. We were sitting around the fire after the kids went to bed, and they were just picking our brain about what we're doing. One kid was from Minnesota, and he was going to school to be a doctor. And I was out of college, and I got to do in surveying. And they were like, well, my suggestion to you is you guys should do this for the next 7 or 8 years, because we're up here paying you to do it because we're too old to do all this work now. And you could do this and just hang out and get paid for a few years and then go get a job. I should have taken his advice, but I didn't. I mean, I did a year there. I did a year and a half. I lived in the Virgin Islands for a year and a half when I was 18, which was awesome. Learned real great how great America is. If you live in a third world country for a year and a half, you get a really good perspective on how good you have it in this country.
I've heard a lot of people that have went into that area, you know, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and they're like, man, it's a total, they might be a U.S. territory, but whoa, man, it's kind of a sketchy place in certain circumstances.
It's a very sketchy place. We had 3 people killed in our painting crew down there in the year and a half I was there.
Wow.
You get off the resorts, it's no joke. It's poverty stricken. There's really rich people there, really poor people, and a lot of people running from the law that are down there.
Yeah, I could see.
Yeah, a lot of shady folks that are living on their catamaran in a bay somewhere, you know, just off the radar.
It kind of takes you back to Silence of the Lambs, you know, Hannibal Lecter. It's somewhere there, you know. It's like, who else is out there, you know? Yeah.
I met some really cool Rastas when I was there, though. Like the guy used to ride. So the island had wild horses on it, and this one Rastafarian dude, it was almost like out of a movie, man. Full dreadlocks, bright blue eyes, and he would bareback with a couch cushion a white wild horse, and he would jump on that and he'd run up and down the beach, and then he'd go out and wade out and net fish. And I ended up kind of approaching him and talking to him, and he invited me back to his little tin shack and stuff. And it was eerie, dude. There was like candles and bats hanging and all kinds of voodoo looking shit. But it was kind of a culture shock for an 18-year-old kid. But I'm glad I did it. Like I learned a lot in that year and a half, just being out on your own. And I made damn good money. That's the other thing. I was able to get myself started that way. You know, you get off on the right foot. Yeah. I was there during Hurricane Hugo too. I got to be basically wiped out that island, ripped our roof off like an hour into the storm. Once the storm hit you can imagine what damage that Hurricane Hugo did to the States. Imagine it rolling over an island that's only 26 miles long and 8 miles wide at the widest spot. It didn't really slow down.
Yeah.
Over that.
What year was that, Mike?
1992.
I was trying to remember if that was around Hurricane Andrew time also.
No, Andrew came afterwards, I think.
93?
93 or 4, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't quite remember, but yeah, it's right in that time frame.
I just remember we were playing cards and drinking as the storm was kicking up. And I looked outside, dude, and the Suzuki Samurai was like the rental of that island at the time. If you remember those little Jeep looking things.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked out and seen one blowing end over end down the street. And then I seen a palm tree just get uprooted and tossed. And I went to my roommate and I was like, dude, we better get in the closet. And we got in the closet and barricaded ourselves with every piece of furniture and mattress. And we were smart enough to line the thing with pots and pans, cookie sheets, whatever we could. And I was like, I'm not from around here. I'm from Illinois, but I've had physics class, and a fucking coconut at 160 mile an hour is a cannonball.
Yeah. I'd be freaked out.
I was freaked out,
especially being on an island. I
thought we were going to die for sure.
There's nowhere to run on an island.
No.
I mean, literally.
And how those people out there and all those tin roof shacks and stuff survive that time after time, I really don't know. It's weird. We sat in that closet for 12 hours till the eye got over, and then you had another 12 hours with the wind going the opposite direction after that.
No, thank you.
Yeah, those mattresses had glass and wood shards and all kinds of shit stuck in them. We just barricaded ourselves in there. We had no roof, just getting poured on. It was loud. It was scary. It really was. But again, that shit makes you stronger.
Definitely gives you the life experience.
Yeah, and it makes me know I will never own a house that doesn't have a basement. I can tell you that, because I still get a little spooked when tornadoes come through here. But the good thing about tornadoes, they're powerful, but they don't last for 12, 14, 15 hours at a time.
You ever had a bad weather experience out on the water?
I have. I've had my rod start buzzing and had to throw it on the deck like vibrating in my hand. And then I beached my boat, took all the rods and everything out of the rod lockers, and we climbed in the rod lockers with the boat up on the bank. It was pretty scary. And luckily that was a smaller lake too. It wasn't a great big. Okeechobee would scare the crap out of me with a big lightning storm or something, because you are the tallest thing around when you're in Florida and you're out in the middle of a big ice lake like that.
I couldn't imagine. Well, between that, freak lightning storm, and you guys get serious storms there. So, that's a whole thing. John tells me about like, hey, dude, we had a tornado come through here, and it's like, yeah, no thanks. I'll do without that.
They're scary, aren't they, Jonathan? They're loud, man.
Dude, I would love to live in a place where there's no more tornadoes. Originally from Tennessee, and dude, we had tornadic weather often there, and man, I forget the actual year, but we had one rip through our town, and it was bad. Like, a lot of people died. Brother lost his house.
Yeah,
it was pretty gnarly, dude.
Yeah, my wife's nephew, he was in one here in Missouri, down by Perryville, down by Gabe, and they were in their truck on Interstate 55, and it came roaring across there, and it picked the truck up and threw it, and he survived, but his buddy that was driving, it killed him. I can't imagine, me and you riding somewhere some Friday night, and next thing I know, you're not there no more because we got picked up and thrown by a tornado.
Yeah, it's just nature's savage, dude.
Oh yeah, it wins almost every time for sure. Back to the old George Carlin thing about saving the planet. Like, no, the planet's just going to shake you off like a bad case of fleas when it's done with you. It survived a lot worse than us.
That's the truth. I mean, yeah. Well, Mike, you know what? We're coming up on our hour here. Actually, we've been having one heck of a good conversation though.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
I looked at it and I'm like, woo, we got, we've been talking and talking, but what So you're going to be fishing with Gabe this year, which is super cool. Like I said, we love Gabe. Gabe's just an awesome friend of ours and everything else. But what are you looking to do in fishing this next year?
I'm looking to, what my main goal is for me and him to finish in the top 5 of that team tournament. I mean, there's some absolute hammers down at Lake of the Ozarks. And if we can do that, I'll be happy as a lark. And then I'd really like to do well in the Oak Outdoor Solo Series. Because that's a group of, that Elite 100 that they invited. It's just nice when you start getting recognized a little bit. You've been around long enough and you've stood enough check lines that people start knowing your name, and then the radio show that I'm doing, hopefully that continues and we can grow that. I'm on there twice a month, sometimes once a month, but average about twice a month. We talk everything outdoors. They have hunting guys on, trapping guys. So yeah, I'm looking to grow that a little bit more. I've thought about doing a podcast thing, but I don't want to try to compete with Gabe or, it's just, I don't have the time to put the work into it that he does either. And they got a good thing going. I'm going to stick with trying to just make enough of a name for myself that people like you guys are willing to have me on. That's fine by me.
Dude, we'd happily have you on anytime, even if you were just not Mike Marfell.
Yeah.
Well, here's what we need to, here's the plan. When me and Gabe win angler, the team of the year, will have us both on at the same time. That's what we need to do.
Dude,
Absolutely.
Who would be cool to have on? Your high school team.
Yeah, I could probably make that happen.
That would
They're
be
out
cool.
of school now, but they're still both young fishermen. They'd probably do that.
Yeah, that'd be sick, dude.
How I got them, that they wanted to know one way to get better, Jonathan, and I had them start coming and fishing the BFLs. They'd come and room with me and Gabe, and they'd fish on the co-angler side, and it was good. It was good. They'd bring their own boat and they go out and practice on their own, and we'd share information at the end of the day and talk about it. And then, we're fishing lakes that they got to fish in their high school tournament. So that's the best way, is just to get out on the water, And competition makes you, back to the competition thing, it makes you bear down. That's maybe that might have been a better answer why I like to do it. It makes you really concentrate and bear down. And as a jig fisherman, if you're not concentrating, you're in trouble. I mean, it takes a lot of focus, because there's a lot of times that fish will bite that jig and you'll never know it if you're not paying attention. There's other days where they just slam it, there's no doubt, but I would say 80%, 85% of the biggest fish I caught, I never felt them bite. I just seen the line move, Seems like the big ones don't. The little guys need to puff up and come smack that thing. The little big guys will just kind of slowly creep up on it and suck it in. You'll never know it if you're not watching your line and focusing.
Our one of our other guests, he called that like a push take. To where you just see the line move. Because we were actually talking about jigging flies.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about, there's a lot of times to where you won't, because I asked him how you maintain that contact. And, he was talking about kind of like doing a pseudo Carolina rig on a fly rod. And he's talked about how he accomplishes it and all this other aspect to it. And he's like, but you get a lot of push takes on it, and you have to really be watching your line because you don't feel it.
No, that's absolutely the same in bass fishing. A lot of the guys that jig fish, they like to move the jig with their rod. And I do that sometimes too, but I learned from Dion Hibden one time when I went out with Dion, because he's a jig guru. And his technique that I've incorporated a lot is I let that jig go to the bottom, and then I just barely crank the reel handle, keep the rod in a good hook set position and keep it in contact with the bottom. Sometimes I'll pop it up off the bottom and then just reel it real slow. And in my mind, I'm picturing that jig just being 1.5 inches, 2 inches off the bottom, just kind of swimming along, and then let it fall to the bottom and maybe drag it a little bit to kick up some dirt, pop it up again and start really slowly swimming it. And the key for me is my eyes are shitty now. I went to that Sunline flipping line that's got the strip of high vis in it, and then it's clear, and then it's high vis, and it's clear, and then it's high vis, so you can really see that line well. And somebody said, aren't you worried about the fish scene? And I was like, I think the Alabama rigs prove that it doesn't matter. You got a freaking coat hanger in the water with swim baits hanging off the back of it, and they still eat it. So I don't think a fish is smart enough to look and say, what's that string on the front pushing that minnow along? I don't think to me, line size is important for how a bait acts, not so much whether the fish can see it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot
In
of
bass fishing anyway, I'm not a trout guy, but in bass
yeah,
fishing,
well, it's
that's my thought.
reactionary. It's reactionary and predatory strikes.
Predatory, yeah.
Yeah,
I would say if bass grew to be 50 pounds, it wouldn't be safe to go swimming because they try to eat you.
Yeah. I'm gonna give that one to bluegill. If bluegill grew to be 50 pounds, you'd be screwed.
Yeah, they weren't blessed with such a big mouth, though. Thank God. The difference.
A little North American piranhas,
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Boy, they taste good, though.
Oh, man. They are tasty.
What's your favorite fish to eat, Brian?
My favorite fish?
Yeah.
Spring Chinook salmon. That's my favorite fish to eat.
All right. Never had that, but I'm sure it's delicious.
I love me a good springer.
So most of the rivers you're fishing, probably pretty cold water year round?
Yeah. They're right now 46 degrees. That's your average temp, and we've had them go down to 42 this winter. So, yeah, pretty slow fishing.
Yeah. Lake of the Ozarks right now is about 38 to 40, depending on where you're at. And if you have a calm night or windy night. But
and that's so amazing to me that you guys are still out there fishing for bass, because our bass are non-existent. We have rivers with smallies in them, and it's like we don't even try, because it's like they're so non-existent. Now, I've seen other people try, but they just kind of disappear. But the river discharges in the West are so heavy, like the main river we fish them in right now, it's not discharging as heavy as it could be, but it's discharging at 30,000 CFS. The bigger rivers, the bigger rivers, 130 to 140,000 right now. The small tributary rivers, 3,000 to 5,000 CFS right now. So you got this chugging current there. Yeah, there's great riprap structure. There's great wooded structure. There's all the places where they would be hiding, but it's like they're like, dude, this is not what we were meant to do.
Right.
We were meant to be, up in this area and not in this kind of water. Plus, we have a lot of marine predators out right now because the fish are migrating, and so we have cormorants, which you guys have too. But we also have a lot of sea lions in the water, and we have a lot of other otters and everything else. So anything that's really but they're not we have black bear. They're more
okay.
The way I equate a black bears are very opportunistic. So are grizzlies and browns, but the majority of the bears that I see that could be fishing for salmon here are dumpster diving. That's what they're doing.
It's easier.
Well, yeah. You go outside the donut shack up on the mountain, and you go in there and get yourself a couple jelly donuts. That's easier than having to go chase something down.
Right.
They make one hell of a mess, I'll tell you what.
Yeah. What is it? Does it slow down and warm up in the summertime then, or does it flow continue?
Oh, it slows down a lot in the summer. That's when we go bass fish, because our bass came here by bucket biology. They were never naturally occurring. So a lot of the anglers that fish for like the bass around here, they consider bass to be trash fish.
Be a nuisance, yeah.
Yeah, nuisance. So you'll see guys, they'll go fish one of the trib rivers, they hook a bass, they whack it with a club and throw it back in for something else to eat. That's kind of, bass and panfish in my area. While there's more folks moving from your area here because they don't want to deal with tornadoes and stuff. Surprise, they trade it for wildfires.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, hey man, I want to go fish for bass. I'm getting more into bass and everything else. And our bass aren't big, but they're plentiful. And in the summer, that's when we really target them. And they'll start coming to life in April, May, kind of in that time frame. They'll start coming to life, and they kind of get it going.
I think the reason we're able to catch them here this time of year is because, like you said, they're used to being here. They're used to it. That's and the current. We don't have that kind of current either. I mean, Lake of the Ozarks is a river. We have current, but it's also a hydroelectric, so it's not constant. It comes on and off. So I've actually caught fish on a jerk bait, come by a stretch that has ice on it, drag my boat through it and break it up and come back 45 minutes later and catch fish in that spot. You know,
Wow.
it's like, you know,
Yeah.
so
Nobody really tries. We never really see a lot of bass angling where it's normally like where you would want to go fish. If there are guys out there, they're pretty hardcore. Like they want to catch bass in the winter, and we have a couple lakes and impoundments that have them, but it's kind of like, you know, everybody's either steelhead fishing in the
well, that's
winter.
just it. If I had steelhead and that stuff, I probably would be fishing for
Yeah,
that too.
or they're fishing for sturgeon, or they go down to the coast, and if the weather's permitting, they'll go jetty fish for ling cod and rock bass and stuff like that. Those saltwater bass, they hit year round. They don't care. They're just reckless. But that's also the ocean. Everything eats each other. But yeah, as far as
why I don't like swimming in it.
yeah, yeah, we have sharks and we have eels and stuff like that. I mean, you'd have to be in a pretty bad predicament to run into an eel or a shark. But yeah, the bass fishing here, summertime, man, it gets so good in the spring and the summer. It's so much fun. You would have a lot of fun because it's just a totally different environment to bass fish.
Right.
Same techniques work. You can finesse a jig around docks. You can, you know, work a Ned. You can do all that kind of stuff, and it works, and it catches fish. But you know, like I said, the culture here is more like, you know, get rid of those fish. You know, they're garbage, and you know, give us our salmon and steelhead because the smallmouth eat all of them. And it's like smallmouth aren't eating all the bass the you know, there's other things out there at play. So
yeah,
you know,
well, they should stop hitting them on the head and start putting them in a skillet because bass aren't bad to eat either, in my
I
opinion.
love eating bass.
I will
One
too.
of my
I
favorite.
like to grill them or fry them, or you know, I don't do it. Most of the stuff that I eat bass wise, I go jerk a bunch of them out of a friend's farm pond or something and eat. You know, I go out on a mission to catch fish to eat. You know.
Yeah. I know that can also be a taboo subject in you know, certain circles, especially in you know, the tournament angling and stuff like that, where people are like, don't eat our bass, you know. But what's been your experience with that?
Oh, most people for whatever reason don't like to eat bass around here. I do. I don't think most tournament guys care one way or the other. I mean, if you think about it, the limit was set for you to take them out and eat them, not drag them to a weigh and release them. So
right,
you need to eat a few of them. You know, I mean, you need to.
Exactly. Well, there's a retention limit in place for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's kind of one of those things that you think about, and
that's why I do it in the farm pond, because you know, you'll get a guy's farm pond, he'll be like, hey, I catch a lot of bass, but they're all the exact same size. I'm like, well, you need to start keeping some, you know.
Yeah, they got to go.
Yeah, they got to go. That's the key, is because they eat so much that then there's not enough food for all of them, and they stay the same size. So
yeah,
is that this part of the country, bass is the king daddy predator, pretty much. You know, I mean, so you can't have too many of them, and then the other populations are going to struggle.
That's it.
I don't think most people around here, in fact, at Palm de Terre Lake here, they always joke that why is all the fish, you know, it's got a 14-inch limit. And I'm like, man, I caught so many 13 and a half, 13 3/4 fish today. And I was like, I don't know why that is. And one of the locals says, because when they get to be 14 inches, they go in the skillet. That's why.
Yeah. That's it. Is that like your size limit there?
At that lake, it's 14. Lake of the Ozarks is 15. Most of the lakes are 15 here. 15 on largemouth and 12 inches on spotted bass, Kentucky bass.
Okay.
And I caught my first keeper smallmouth at a Lake of the Ozarks. It doesn't have many in them, but apparently there are a few in there. Table Rock's loaded with. Table Rock's one of my favorite lakes because you can go down a stretch of bank in the right time of year and catch 15-inch keepers of smallmouth, largemouth, and Kentucky's on the same stretch of bank, and that's pretty cool. You know, there's times of the year there where they're all kind of bunched up together. You know.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't last long, but it's really cool. That lake you can go target fish in 100 feet or in 3 feet. You know, I've been blown away how shallow I've caught them there. You can see the bottom, and it's 1.5 feet deep. I mean, you can see the bottom at 10 foot, but it's only 1.5 feet deep. And you flip that jig up next to that stump back to them being predators, and all of a sudden your line starts going sideways. You would have thought you would have been able to see if there was a fish there. but that's how good they can hide themselves. Is you can catch a 4-pounder in 12 inches of water next to a bush that's gin clear. You know, it's crazy. It really is.
I mean, to me, the bass, especially there again, living where I do, and that it not being a legacy species like what it is for, you know, where you're at.
Yeah, the Midwest and the South.
Yeah. To me, the bass is just one of those. They're a cool fish because we don't have fish that are that outwardly aggressive here, I guess is the best way to put it. Our fish, you know, rainbow trout require, they can be aggressive, but they require a certain amount of finesse, right? They require that. And you're not just going to go in there and blast some big lure in unless it's the right time of year or whatever else. And they're feeling aggressive enough that they want to go attack that size lure. You're not going to do that. But with a bass, it's like, dude, I can use big lures. I can see them. They hit top water. That's the fun part of bass. And that's where I found my pleasure and joy in it, is like when all the other fishing sucks in the summer, bass really fill that void. It's a good reason.
That's cool.
Yeah. And that's from my perspective, being a guy from the Northwest, they're just a fun fish. It keeps me fishing year round. You know, I don't just give up. I'm not like, well, I can't go fish now because, you know, nothing's running. I don't give up on it. I just keep fishing. I go fish for a different species.
That's cool. Yeah. I'm kind of the opposite. In the summertime, I coached baseball for years. So I would take most of the summers off and just go coach baseball and not fish for 3 or 4 months. Get kind of clear your head of it. And then you're really anxious to get back out there. And it's not, it was twofold. It's not only coaching the baseball. We got a lot of recreational traffic around here in the summertime, and tournament fishing is just not good when it's 105 degrees or 100 degrees out, you know.
Oh yeah.
A lot of guys kill fish trying to keep them in the live well, and that's not cool. So we don't have a whole lot of tournaments here in the summertime. Some of the deeper lakes, there still is Table Rock and Bull Shoals, North Fork, but for the most part, for me, my favorite time to fish in the Midwest is during deer season, because I don't deer hunt and all the bass fishermen deer hunt. So I got the lake to myself for the most part. And it's just less crowded. I love fall fishing when they're feeding up. It's just a great time of year to be out there when the weather's breaking into the winter and those fish are starting to sense it. And water starts to get down around 50 degrees, and they really start grouping up and feeding on the shad, and you can go out and catch a bunch of them. That's probably my favorite time. My winter time is awesome too, but when you're having to clear your guides out of ice all the time, you know, when that's no fun.
That's one of the downfalls to winter fishing is, yes, it's a lot rougher environment as you know.
Yeah.
It's definitely not as fun. That's for damn sure. And yeah, clearing ice out of your guides constantly, definitely not a good time.
Yeah, if you can get a day where it's above freezing and, you know, and you don't have a lot of wind, or you got just the right amount of wind, then it's fine. A sunny 40-degree day in February is fine, but you don't get to pick what the weather is on tournament day. So if it's 17 degrees in the morning, until that water, you know, you're going to constantly be dunking that rod. I mean, it just makes it makes it harder to concentrate, and just everything about it. You know, you're trying to cover water in the wintertime and fish slow at the same time. It really, it's kind of a difficult thing, you know, to slow down and cover water at the same time, but it has to be done. You know, the guy I do the radio show with, it blows his mind that you catch fish at Lake of the Ozarks when the water temperature is that cold. I'm like, dude, fish don't stop eating. I mean,
no, they have to eat year round. A lot of people forget that they have to eat year round. So
and they group up more in the winter here. I don't know about there, but here the fish seem to concentrate more. And at Lake of the Ozarks, you can get on a group of the fish where they're all 2 pounds, or you can get on a group of them where they're all 4.5, 5, 6 pounds too. I mean, that's what the live scope's done, is guys that are good with that can pull up and shine that dude on the school and know whether they want to stick around there or not. To me, that live scope's going to be bigger for people practicing than it is actually on tournament day, knowing what size fish you're dealing with. But Gabe told me, have you guys heard this? That a lot of guys are coming to realize that they'll shine that live scope down into a brush pile and the fish all move out of it. Like they're sensing that that live scope, that pulse or whatever's coming, the sonar. Gabe said he's seen it shine on a brush pile and they'll be fishing it. And then if you keep that live scope on there long enough, they'll just move out. They'll just leave the brush pile.
I don't have live scope, so I don't really know that, but I have heard that on several different occasions.
Makes sense, right? They'll adapt. They know something's wrong.
Absolutely. They will adapt.
Like when I was fishing shallow in that tournament, when I was talking about those guys coming in, I got 4 graphs on mine and they were all turned off except for the map. No sonar running. I don't need anything pinging back there in that shallow water. I think it makes a difference. And same way with having a hydro wave. I think that more than anything, it masks your presence, the sound of your trolling motor and everything else. And that thing does work, dude. I've had that. I turn that hydro wave on sometimes and I'll see a bunch of turtles just staring at the speaker. Like, wait, I heard there was shad being eaten over here. We're looking for some scraps.
Oh, wow.
Really, I've had it. I've turned it on in the morning. There's no bait activity whatsoever going on. You turn that thing on, and within a few minutes, there's shad flickering all over the place. What is that creation, Jonathan? That looks gigantic.
It is gigantic, dude. This is a pike fly.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a bigger one.
How big of a hook's that guy got? That was pretty big. Looks like a 3/0 bass hook or something in there.
That's a 4/0 here. The 4/0. I'm making another one of these. This one's in sucker.
So how much does that guy weigh?
Like nothing.
Nothing.
It's you just build a lot of bulk with a lot of light material.
So
this one's
you'll
12
fish that on a fly rod for pike?
Yeah, pike and muskie. Bass eat them too, dude.
I'm sure.
Like this is a shad.
That is freaking cool.
I mean, it's not really a shad. It's kind of like shad color, if you will.
Right, but once it gets wet, it's definitely going to look like a big shad.
Yeah, it's going to look like a big bait fish. This is 12.5 inches. That's a 6/0 and a 4/0 hook.
Wow. Man, I wish I could have something like that I could cast on a bait caster. It looked like a big gizzard shad.
You could, dude. I tie swim jigs and stuff like that. I'll send you some.
I would love that because at Lake of the Ozarks, when you see the big gizzard shad, it's time to put your trolling motor down and start fishing. Big bass at the Lake of the Ozarks love to eat those big 8 to 10 inch gizzard shad.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tie you some up, dude.
That would be awesome.
I've actually got some jigs from a dude that wanted me to tie him some mullet jigs for the salt. And after I bought all my materials and stuff, and I was like, you still want these jigs before I start tying them? And he never answered me back. So I've still got those jigs.
That purple on that particular one is freaking gorgeous.
Dude, purple's probably my favorite color in baits.
Well, when you made those soft baits for me with the green pumpkin purple, the reason I had you do that color is because I had a guy at Table Rock that always trapped crawdads for me before I come down for a tournament so I could look at them and see what they look like. 9 times out of 10, they were green pumpkin with purple on their bellies. So I think you can't go wrong with green pumpkin at any time, and then add a little purple or red or whatever your flavor is. But that thing there looks deadly.
Hopefully. I'm actually going to put pink on the head.
Why not? Give it a target, right?
Yeah, that exactly. This isn't for a smart fish. This is for a hungry fish.
Yeah, big hungry fish.
That's awesome. So that was on the tip of my tongue. So do you do that? Oh yeah. Do you tie like feather trebles too? If
you can put feathers on it, I'll tie it. You give me a hockey puck, I'll put some feathers on it for you,
Right. Well, here's what I'm going to do. We'll have a conversation sometime. I'll get the right size and right type of trebles that I need and have them shipped to your house. And then you just give me a price, and I want to have some feathered trebles for the back of my popping baits and walking baits.
Well, man, I don't sell anything anymore. I just do this for education and for personal pleasure. But
Can I send you some Black Rifle coffee at least or something?
Oh, no, dude. Just fish them and tell me what you think of them.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah, man.
Speaking of, have you guys ever done this technique? I can't do it in one of the tournament circuits because we can't have any multi-lure baits. But I've taken a popper or a yellow magic popping bait, take the rear hook off, put a swivel on it, tie a fluorocarbon leader to a walking bait, and then have that popper out in front with a walker walking about 18 inches behind it. Caught more doubles doing that than I ever have on an Alabama rig. It's kind of tough to cast, kind of like throwing a Carolina rig, that double splash action, but you got that popper out front getting that bloop, 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 getting their attention, and then that bait walking slowly behind them.
No, I've never done that.
It's pretty deadly at times.
So,
but I don't like throwing a topwater popper at all without a feathered treble of some sort. And the ones you get out of the box, they only last a little bit, a few catches, and they're pretty toast.
Well, man, honestly, like, you talking about like the VMCs?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, that's the only feathered treble I'm familiar with are the VMCs. Dude, you could put liquid fusion on those. Just let those harden. So liquid fusion's like I've got some sitting on my desk, dude, but you can put it's a super glue, dude, but it's waterproof. And that's what we use on like these big pike flies and stuff. Because once you let that stuff dry, dude, teeth don't bust that apart. Like those feathers will come apart and you'll have to cut that thread and shit off of that hook before you'll be able to actually get done with it.
Wow, that's a good tip. You can just buy that at a fly shop, I guess.
No, it's not even for flies, dude. It's just it's for fabric. It's for people that like it's a performance adhesive for fabric, and you can put it on all kinds of stuff, dude. I highly recommend it. That's what I use on all my flies.
So you could get that at like a fabric store or like a hobby store?
Yeah, hobby stores if they got them. I mean, you can order it online. It's like $7 a bottle.
Oh, wow, that's nothing.
Yeah, and I've had this bottle I use a lot of it, and I've still got like half a bottle left. I've been using it for months. So
sweet. I'm just how long have you been doing this? Out here, I'm interviewing you now, but I'm fascinated by the whole thing. You know, I make my own skirts for my jigs. I buy them naked a lot and then tie my own skirts. I don't tie, you know, I got the little rubber band stuff, but I usually lose them long before the skirt ever comes off of them.
Dude, I've been tying flies for 2 years, a little over 2.5 years, something like that.
It looks therapeutic as heck.
It is, man, and that was the whole thing for me. Like, man, I don't really talk about it a lot, but I've got PTSD. Iraq once, Afghanistan twice. You know, it just comes with the territory. You know.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're not alone, brother.
Yeah. So you know, this is my therapy, man. It's a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, it's definitely cheaper.
Yeah.
Than burying yourself in a bottle.
Yeah, no shit. Well, I say that, but sometimes I think I would have saved money.
That's awesome.
Drinking. But no, man, yeah, this is my thing that I do.
That's cool, man. It's just a neat freaking something you can do for a long time too.
It is.
Those things hanging back there on the wall, that's what I do for therapy. I don't play in a band or anything, but I sure enjoy banging on them. You know, the guitar, probably much like what I always say, it's kind of like chess. There's only a handful of moves, but you can spend a lifetime trying to figure out how to perfect it and never get there.
Dude, that is a fact. And you know, I'm a musician too. I play a bunch of instruments actually, but my favorite one recently, and probably for the past like 5 years, has been harmonica. Because I can put it in my pocket and I take it with me anywhere.
Well, I'm your man. My brother-in-law if you ever get to where you want to play blues harmonica, my brother-in-law passed a few years ago. My sister finally got the courage up to put all of his stuff together, and she's selling all of his harmonica effects pedals and amps. And he played in the Chicago blues circuit for years and years. He was a phenomenal harp player.
Wow, man.
And it's fascinating. We were at a Grateful Dead show one time, and he has this mini harmonica. You can just stick it in your mouth and not have to have your hands on it. And then he would take his full-size one and put it up to his ear, and he'd walk around in the crowd blowing the one in his mouth and making it look like he was playing out of his ear. It gathered a lot of attention.
That's cool.
He was a trip, man. He was a trip. Old deadhead from the word go. I'm just happy tying my little jigs the way I do it. It's just cooler to catch something on something even if it's just assembling it yourself, it's still cooler than catching them on one out of the package.
Yeah, I think so. It's rewarding. And, for me, like when I do this for other people, I used to sell all this shit. I mean, I used to sell plastics and stuff too. For me, being a part of a memory. That's what's cool to me.
Hell yeah.
Because that's why I asked a little bit, selfishly about the baits. Because I was like, I wonder if you caught anything on them.
Oh yeah, I caught a few fish on them. It just wasn't like I said, wasn't the action I was looking for. I'm pretty picky about that. And I knew you trying to change them. I mean, we're not Strike King where we can spend all the money trying to keep changing the mold to get it just perfect, to where it does its thing. But man, the way they looked with that chartreuse tips, I'm telling you that why some of the bigger companies that have the resources don't do that, I'll never understand.
Dude, because it actually takes so much time. You were like the only guy that I did that for and didn't regret it.
Well, I promise you, those high school kids have caught plenty of fish on them.
Well, that makes me happy, dude. And I mean, you picked out the color. I literally named that color M2.
Nice.
For you. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's the coolest thing I've heard in a long time. That's awesome, man. That's really, really cool.
And like Gabe had a color he liked, and I called it GM Pumpkin.
Nice.
For Gabe Montgomery Pumpkin.
That's awesome, man. Well, we might have to bring you out of retirement. We start fishing together with Gabe. We might have to get that going again.
Oh shit.
I've got a guy I talked to at the fishing show. I'm gonna try to get him. There was an old bait company. They're still around, Excite Baits, and they made this crawl that I really liked. And then of course they quit making it. When I heard they quit making it, I bought hundreds of bags of it, but I'm almost out of it. I've kept several bags thinking that maybe someday I can find somebody that'll, I think you got to have like 10% different or something like that. Then I guess if you're not going to sell them, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sell them, and their plastic floated. So to me, it made the jig fall really flat instead of nose down because it was a big bulky piece of plastic on the back and it kind of slowed the fall. You could have a heavy jig that fell a little slower. And I really liked them. And of course, like everything else that I liked, they ended up not quit making them. But
well, Mike, this is your finished pipe fly right here.
That is awesome, man. You get a little sunlight on that, dude. Yeah. So how many different pieces of material are not individual, but
dude, that's just feathers, flash, and like those kind of like cheaper rod sleeves. It's like that same kind of mylar woven material. This is actually not a lot of shit. It looks like a lot of shit, but it's not. It's got a piece of, we call it body tubing in the fly world, but really it's just like some mylar tubing. And it lets you build fake bulk because it allows you to prop all these materials up and make it look huge, and it doesn't collapse in the water because it's got this tubing behind of it, which I'm pulling out here. So this is just like feathers on the back.
Yeah.
And then that tubing is right here, just folded over.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That does look like that broadstock material. For sure.
and then you just tile the rest of this shit around it, and it gives it that teardrop profile like this.
So are you making that, or are you buying that like that and then tying it to the hook?
So I buy everything and just tie it on the hook.
That's awesome. Fascinated by that.
Oh, but dude, Mike, we are running a little later now, which is not a big deal.
Not a big deal for me, as long as you guys are good with it.
But we want to respect your time. And dude, where are you gonna kick up some social medias once you and Gabe start firing stuff off? Or you still
just Tin Horse Monty. I'll be
all
just,
right, man.
I'm not going to try to compete with that channel, man. I'm just going to be on it. That's my thing.
Just YouTubing it up.
Yeah, just go with what Gabe's doing. Most of my social media is just I rant and rave on Facebook occasionally. And that's about it.
As all of us do, and should.
Yeah, it's a cesspool, really, isn't it? It's kind of pretty much. It's kind of it's the downfall of the younger generation, in my opinion. I'll watch a group of high school kids that are all standing in a circle staring at their phone instead of talking to each other. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, but well, Mike, so people will be able to find you with Gabe over on the Tin Horse Monty YouTube. Okay.
And then you can go find archives of the Bluff City Outdoors wherever you find Finder podcast. You can find archives of all the shows there too. Our radio show gets put on podcast, so Bluff City Outdoors. At St. Louis FM. Have to look at the bumper sticker. Newstalk STL is the radio station that they put it out on podcast, but it's on Google and Apple and Spotify, wherever you find your podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Everybody go out there. Make sure to check out Mike's stuff out there on the pre-recorded stuff. If you're in the St. Louis area and you have that radio station, make sure that you're listening to his show too. It's
it's a trip, man. We get in the car the other day to go on a Saturday and turn on the radio, and I'm on there because we record it on Thursdays and it airs on Saturdays.
Yeah.
My kids were like, "Wait a second, that's you." I was like, "Yes, it is. It sure is."
That's cool. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys, man.
Appreciate it. It's
I
great
really
conversation. We're just carrying on doing our stuff here, but man, what a fantastic conversation. Really
it's working class fishing, right? You got to do a little work while you're doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I got this reel with parts exploded everywhere, and John's got dubbing and flash exploded everywhere. And
I managed to kill a small glass of 10-cup whiskey while we were sitting here, so that all worked out. I'm doing work too. It's just a different kind.
Yeah. Well, hey, Mike, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. Let's do this again whenever me and Gabe win.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Good luck, fellas. And yeah.
Take care, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
All right, man. Take care. Everybody. We'll see you.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, we really appreciate you listening into this episode. There again, go check out Mike over on the two aforementioned places, Tin Horse Monty, or over on the radio station. We'll have all the information in the show notes for you. John, you want to run down that list of sponsors one more time?
Yeah, everybody, thanks so much for listening. Go check out Mike. And you can find us at workingclassfishing.com, all those other places. And this episode has been brought to you by Lid Rig, an Adrimus Fly Company, 317 Flies, CD Fishing USA, Mr. Shearcare, Naughty Tackle, and Angry Rooster Fly Company. Go check them out. They've got codes for you. They got a lot of good products. There's been a lot of overwhelming support from everybody, and especially to the sponsors. They've been letting us know, so we do appreciate what you guys are doing for the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. And everybody, there again, go check us out at workingclassfishing.com, or you can check us out over on Instagram at Working Class Fishing Podcast, or if you're watching us here on YouTube and this is your first time, make sure to hit that subscribe button for us. We really appreciate the support. But until next time, everybody, thank you so much for watching. We hope you all have a wonderful day.